After studying this module, you shall be able to understand the basic concepts of intelligence and to know the cross-cultural influences on intelligence. Intelligence. In this unit, we will cover the cross-cultural influences on cognition. Generally speaking, cognition means thinking. The American Psychological Association, or the APA, defines it as the process of knowing, including attending, remembering, and reasoning. Also the content of the processes such as concepts and memories. In this module, we cover intelligence. Intelligence is a common concept that finds prominence in everyday life. It is defined as intelligence is not a single unitary ability, but rather a composite of several functions. The term denotes that combination of abilities required for survival and advancement within a particular culture. It is one of the most researched topics in psychology with various theories such as Spearman's G-factor theory, Sternberg's triarchic model, etc. A term most associated with intelligence is the intelligence quotient or the IQ. The term was first used in the 20th century by German psychologist William Stern. Intelligence, the basic concepts. The APA defines intelligence as the global capacity to profit from experience and to go beyond given information about the environment. Defining intelligence is very difficult due to its various conceptions. However, we can generally understand it as a cognitive process of perceiving, learning, understanding, and reasoning. Spearman proposed the idea that intelligent behavior is generated by a single unitary quality within the human mind or brain. Spearman derived this theoretical entity called the general factor or simply G through a new statistical technique that analyzed the correlations among a set of variables. This technique, called factor analysis, demonstrated that scores on all mental tests are positively correlated. This offered compelling evidence that all intelligent behavior is derived from one metaphorical pool of mental energy. The Cattell-Horn theory of fluid and crystallized intelligence proposes that general intelligence is actually a conglomeration of perhaps 100 abilities working together in various ways in different people to bring out different intelligence. GF-GE theory separates these abilities broadly into, first, two different sets of abilities that have quite different trajectories over the course of development from childhood through adulthood. Fluid abilities, denoted by GF, drive the individual's ability to think and act quickly, solve novel problems, and encode short-term memories. They have been described as the source of intelligence that an individual uses when he or she doesn't already know what to do. Fluid intelligence is grounded in physiological efficiency and is thus relatively independent of education and acculturation. The other factor, encompassing crystallized abilities denoted by GC, stems from learning and acculturation and is reflected in tests of knowledge, general information, use of language, and a wide variety of acquired skills. Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences proposes that intelligence behavior does not arise from a single unitary quality of the mind, but rather that different kinds of intelligence are generated from separate metaphorical pools of mental energy. Each of these pools enables the individual to solve problems or to create products that are valued within one or more cultural settings. This theory has been discussed in great details in the following sections. Sternberg's triarchic theory of successful intelligence contends that intelligent behavior arises from a balance between analytical, creative, and practical abilities, and that these abilities function collectively to allow individuals to achieve success within particular social cultural context. Analytical abilities enable the individual to evaluate, analyze, compare, and contrast information. Creative abilities generate invention, discovery, and other creative endeavors. Practical abilities tie everything together by allowing individuals to apply what they have learned in the appropriate setting. Cross-cultural understanding of intelligence. The socio-politico-economic conditions of different cultures render them with different understanding of what is valued in their culture. Different cultures have different conceptions of intelligence. General understanding of different cultures has been presented in table given. The existence of more specialized factors other than G has been demonstrated in cross-cultural studies. This has been demonstrated by Berg and Belmont in 1990, Vernon in 1969. However, there is much bias in the study of intelligence as well as its measurement. Many models of intelligence have focused on the genetic and physiological basis of intelligence, which decrees certain races to be less intelligent than others. He classified world's population into three races: Mongoloid, Caucasoid, and Negroid, based on a few superficial characteristics, none of which can be shown to have any links to psychological characteristics. However, research has yet to prove any such claims. Other factors influencing intelligence are perceptual and kinesthetic experiences, varied stimulation, family climate, linguistic and conceptual simulations, example books, regular and prolonged schooling, and positive self-concept. Many of these have been found to account for significant variations in test performances of cognitive competencies. An important example of this difference is observed in the study of expatriates. Expatriates, defined as people who spend a period of time living and working in a foreign country, confront myriad novel, ambiguous, and challenging situations that disrupt their habitual routines. They are said to be involved in deculturation and acculturation in their schematic understanding. Deculturation involves reducing the rigidity of one's dimensional cultural understanding. Acculturation involves forming schemas which deal with multiple levels of cultural understanding. Also, such different conceptions of intelligence change the way one culture understands giftedness as compared to the other. For example, a child who does not fit into the mold of conventional giftedness finds himself or herself being denied the resources that others of his or her temperament are provided with. This is especially true of culturally different children who are often unable to adjust to a curriculum which is culturally different from their own. The most important quandary is the notion of giftedness. Giftedness is measured in terms of IQ and its evaluation instead of conceptual or practical understanding. Hence, there is a need for a culturally compatible curricula and mode of instructions in schools across the globe to truly differentiate gifted children from others. Cross-cultural influences on intelligence. Cultural differences in intelligence can be measured by appraising the facets which represent the abilities encompassing intelligence. However, as most of the intelligence tests are Anglo-centric, it is not very easy to do so. Anglo-centric refers to the fact that intelligence tests are built around the Western notion of intelligence, which in turn is inextricably found in the white middle class values and culture. It has been noted that while assessing the variations in conception of intelligence in different cultures, there is an emphasis on delineating the Western concepts. For example, Goodnow in 1976 showed the value placed on speed, originality, mental manipulation and parsimony in Western countries, whereas Ugandan villagers associated intelligence with adjectives such as slow, careful and active. But other studies have described the similarities underlying the conceptions of intelligence. Irwin and Vandenberg and Haxestein reviewed such studies, for example, Guthrie 1963, Irwin 1969, Vandenberg 1950 and Vernon 1969, concluded that when Western-based tests contending to identify abilities are administered in different cultures, the results reveal that theoretical dimensions are similar to those found underlying Western data. But it is important to note that the primary subjects across Western and non-Western cultures were generally students. Consequently, the likeness in factor structure may be a function of similarities in worldwide educational objectives that encourage overlearning of certain skills. Hence, as yet, we have seen contrasting evidence of similarities and dissimilarities across different cultures. Intelligence has both genetic and environmental influences. One of the most important theories of intelligence is the multiple intelligence theory by Howard Gardner, given in 1983. Rather than considering intelligence as a monolithic entity, Gardner posits that people perceive the world through multiple modes of interpretation and inquiry. Each identified intelligence is distinguished from the others based on neurological, biological, and cross-cultural evidence. These can be classified under the following subheads: linguistic, musical, logical mathematical, spatial, bodily kinesthetic, intrapersonal, interpersonal, and naturalist. The theory places a central emphasis on the environment of the individual. Gardner defines intelligence not in terms of raw capacity or mastery, but as the ability to solve problems or to create products that are valued within one or more cultural settings. The individual's domain of knowledge is not constructed in cognitive vacuum. The different domains and disciplines valued by different cultures exert a remarkable influence over how one's intelligences develop, and also the extent to which they are mobilized. Gardner has placed increasing emphasis on the role of culture, and he now cites adherence to the psychological theories of contextualization and distribution, both of which stress the inseparability of intellect from one's cultural setting. The following section discusses each of the intelligences in detail along with the influence that culture exerts on them. Linguistic intelligence. Linguistic intelligence is characterized by the use and comprehension of language in both its written and oral forms. Linguistic intelligence provides us with the capacity to inform, to remember, to explain, to convince, and to even reflect on language itself. Linguistic intelligence, while universal, manifests itself differently across cultures, particularly in a culture's emphasis on oral versus written expression of language. Traditional cultures may place greater emphasis on verbal communication, on oral traditions and theoretical skills, while other cultures place greater relative value on the written word. Musical intelligence. Musical intelligence is our human capacity to perform, compose, and appreciate the tones, rhythms, and melodies of organized sound. Cognitive studies have established it as a neurologically distinct mechanism from that of linguistic communication. Indeed, musicians alternatively describe their capacities as a form of musical logical thinking. Musical intelligence is innate in all of us, yet evidence suggests it relies heavily on early cultivation and immersion during childhood years. Musical intelligence may not be dependent upon one's cultural environment for its existence, but is heavily shaped and influenced by it. Musical talent is emphasized to varying degrees in different cultures. In certain societies, it is a highly valued, essential social skill, while in Western culture, Gardner notes that music occupies a relatively low niche, and so musical illiteracy is acceptable. Qualitative aspects of music are emphasized to varying degrees in different cultures, a fact that is borne out in the resulting sound. Logical mathematical intelligence. Logical mathematical intelligence derives from our interactions with the objects that surround us. It reflects our ability to observe behaviors and actions in our environment and then employ logical reasoning to make deductions and predictions about those behaviors. All societies universally possess and utilize logical mathematical intelligence. Indeed, it has been referred to as the glue that holds together all cognition. In traditional societies, numerical abilities and logical thinking are highly developed, often in extraordinary ways, but still remain grounded in functions of day-to-day importance within the culture. Western society, however, has been peculiar in its relentless development of a formalized, higher realm of operational thought, creating a field of study that has grown increasingly abstract and arcane, requiring a steady accumulation of knowledge from generation to generation. Gardner notes that logical mathematical intelligence has been of singular importance in the history of the West, yet also observes that this high valuation on the advancement of a single capacity may possibly come at the expense of others. Spatial intelligence. It is the capacity to correctly perceive aspects of the physical world and the ability to perform accurate mental transformations upon that perception, even when the physical object is no longer available for reference. Spatial abilities are greatly valued, greatly in all cultures, although the specific manner in which it is developed and applied will vary according to the activities deemed essential in that society. Gardner describes a wealth of extraordinary examples from the abilities of Eskimos to navigate seemingly featureless terrain of African tribes to derive to the ability of mariners to navigate by the alignment of stars. Gardner sees spatial processing as operating in essentially similar form across diverse cultures and as relatively resistant to cultural molding when compared to the other identified intelligences. Bodily kinesthetic intelligence. Bodily kinesthetic intelligence involves our relationship with the physical objects and our physical environment. Gardner identifies two discrete capacities associated with bodily kinesthetic intelligence: our ability to control our body's actions for personal expression of functional purpose and our ability to manipulate objects in our environment in a skilled fashion. Gardner acknowledges that some may initially reflect the concept of a bodily intelligence and attributes this as a recollection of current Western culture. In recent decades, Western society has increasingly compartmentalized the concept of physical versus intellectual pursuits and has placed different cultural valuations on them. Although athleticism and other forms of physical prowess are highly valued in our culture, they are also seen as separate and somehow less privileged, less special than the academic pursuits. Some physical activities, such as dance, have reached the level of taboo in Western society, particularly for young males, despite being an ancient universal form of expression present in all cultures. These prevailing attitudes may even be subtly reflected in the way cognitive psychologists discuss motor control as involving lower function of the brain cortex than higher thought processes. Interpersonal or intrapersonal intelligence. Gardner identifies two discrete capacities related to personal intelligence: an intrapersonal intelligence that looks inward to a person's internal feelings and an interpersonal intelligence that reflects outwardly upon the feelings and personalities of other individuals. While identifying them as separate cognitive activities, he acknowledges the relationship between the two is so connected as to be inseparable. One's self-knowledge is dependent upon one's interactions with others, and a person's relationships with other individuals are drawn from one's internal existence. Gardner therefore treats both intelligence jointly, and the same is done herein. Gardner notes that of all the identified intelligences, the personal intelligences display the greatest variety of forms and are most impacted by one's social environment. In particular, cultures differ in their relative emphasis on personal self versus social self. Western society is known for being a highly individualistic culture. In contrast, Hindu culture eschews the assertion of personal self over one's outward role in the community. In between these two extremes, some cultures emphasize balance between the two personal intelligences, while others develop segregated, compartmentalized roles for the two selves. Furthermore, different cultures place different emphasis on the extent to which one's personal intelligence can assert itself over the other. Some societies see intrapersonal self as being under the power and control of greater society, while others including Western culture, believe personal self has the free will to influence and even change the world. Thus, we have seen that out of the many theories of intelligence, it is the multiple intelligence theory which offers a cultural side to the area of intelligence. Although the hereditary influences on intelligence cannot be denied, the cultural influences on intelligence should not be ignored. With this, we conclude the module on cognition. We described the cross-cultural influences on various aspects of cognition, namely perception, creativity, thought processes, etc. Summary. Cognition can be defined as the processes of knowing, including attending, remembering, and reasoning. Also, the content of the processes such as concepts and memories. Intelligence is not a single unitary ability, but rather a composite of several functions. The term denotes that the combination of abilities required for survival and advancement within a particular culture. Some of the important models of intelligence are Spearman's G-factor theory, Sternberg's triarchic model, Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence, etc. Cognitive science revolution was facilitated by the works of Newell and Simon, Miller and Noam Chomsky, along with many other prolific personas. The belief that cognitive processes in humans, animals, and computer software were similar revolutionized the cognitive perceptions of culture too. Instead of focusing on culture as a whole, the center of attention became the average people who are involved in acquisition, storage, and application of knowledge in their day-to-day activities. Different cultures have different conceptions of intelligence. Cultural differences in intelligence can be measured by appraising the facets which represent the abilities encompassing intelligence. Major reflections of cultural influences on intelligence can be seen in the work of Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligence.